The auction hall was filled with strange lights and endless noise. Hundreds of alien shapes crowded the giant chamber, their voices mixing into a strange storm of laughter, whispers, and sharp clicking tongues. Gold banners and crystal lamps hung from the ceiling, making the place shine like a palace. Yet at the center of all this beauty, there was something dark, a stage, and on that stage a cage. Inside the cage sat a girl. She was young, thin, with tired eyes that still carried a spark of life. Her clothes were torn, her face was pale, but she sat tall, even while fear pressed heavy on her chest. She looked around the hall, searching, hoping, though she did not know for what. She whispered to herself so soft that no one else could hear, "Please, don't leave me." The auction master, a tall alien with a silver mask, stepped forward. His voice echoed like thunder, translated into many tongues at once. "Tonight," he announced, "we present something rare, something priceless. A living human." The crowd gasped. Whispers spread through the hall. "A human? Impossible. I thought they were gone. How much will she cost?" "Anything, anything." The girl closed her eyes. She knew what would happen. She had seen it before. Every cage, every slave brought here was sold like an object. She had prayed it would not happen to her, but here she was. The auctioneer lifted his arm. "Let the bidding begin." Numbers flew through the air, shouted in alien voices. Rich lords with jeweled skin raised their hands. Others with glowing eyes snapped their claws to call attention. Each bid was higher, faster, more desperate. The girl held the bars of her cage. Her hands shook. She wanted to scream. She wanted to run. But she could only sit and wait while strangers decided her fate. Her heart raced. "Please, someone save me. Someone, anyone." Then suddenly the hall grew quiet. The bidding slowed. A voice rose from the back. It was not alien. It was not strange. It was human. "I'll take her." The words cut through the air like a blade. The entire hall turned to look. There, standing calmly at the far end of the chamber, was a man. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed not in fine silks or glowing jewels, but in simple dark clothing. His hair was black, his eyes steady, his face calm. He looked so ordinary that for a moment many laughed. "Is that a human?" one alien whispered. "How dare a human bid here?" Another hissed. The girl's breath caught in her throat. "A human? Here?" For the first time in so long, she saw someone who looked like her. Someone who spoke her language. Someone who might understand. Hope flickered inside her, weak but alive. The auction master tilted his masked head. His voice echoed with amusement. "A human dares to bid? This is an auction for lords, not for vermin like you." The man did not flinch. He only repeated louder this time, "I'll take her." Laughter exploded in the hall. Does he have the wealth? Maybe he's mad. A human trying to buy a human. How pathetic. The girl gripped the bars tighter. Her eyes stayed on him. Something about him was strange. He stood so calmly as if none of this frightened him. The auctioneer sneered. "Very well. If you wish to embarrass yourself, then match the bids of our noble guests." The man nodded once. His eyes never left the girl. The bidding began again. Voices rose, faster, sharper. The numbers climbed higher than before. Alien nobles pushed one another, desperate to win, and every time the man raised his hand. Every bid he matched. Without pause, without fear. The aliens laughed at first. Then they frowned. Then they began to whisper again. "Where does he get such wealth? No human should have this power. Who is he?" The girl's heart pounded harder. She could not understand it. Why was he doing this? Why was he fighting for her, a stranger? But as she watched him, something in his calm face told her he was not fighting only for her. The auctioneer's voice grew louder, desperate to keep control. 100,000 credits. 200. 500,000. And still the man raised his hand. The girl's breath shook. Her whisper escaped again. "Please, don't leave me." This time, for the first time, it felt like maybe someone had heard. The hall grew heavy with tension. The crowd began to sense something unusual. This was no ordinary man. This was no ordinary bid. The auctioneer slammed his hand down. "Final call." The girl pressed her forehead against the bars. Her eyes locked on the man, and then he lifted his hand again. Calm, steady, certain. The hall fell silent. Every alien stared at him. Every noble froze. The girl felt her chest tighten. For the first time, she believed. She believed he would not leave her. The auctioneer's masked face twitched uneasy. For reasons no one could explain, the hall grew cold. And so the auction began to change. The silence in the hall was sharp, like a knife cutting through the air. Aliens that once laughed now stared at the man. His single raised hand was calm, steady, unshaken. The auctioneer shifted uneasily, his silver mask catching the light. He had hosted countless auctions, sold rare beasts and dying kings, but never had he seen something like this. A human daring to outbid alien lords. The girl in the cage leaned forward, her breath short. Her heart beat fast, not only from fear but from a strange, rising hope. Who was this man? Why was he here? The auctioneer cleared his throat, forcing authority back into his voice. Do you think this is a game, human? You cannot match the wealth of the noble houses. Speak your name. Who dares to stand against the crowns of the galaxy? The man lowered his hand slowly. His eyes were sharp but calm. His voice, deep and clear, carried across the hall. My name is not important. What matters is this: I'll take her. Laughter returned, but weaker this time, edged with nerves. Arrogant fool. Maybe he's insane. He will be crushed. The bidding rose again. Alien lords shouted, pushing the numbers higher and higher, not because they wanted the girl anymore, but because they wanted to humiliate this man. And yet, he did not falter. With every shout, every insult, every outrageous price, the man lifted his hand again. One alien lord with glowing scales slammed his staff against the floor. This is impossible. How can a filthy human rival me? The man did not look at him. He only raised his hand again, quiet, almost effortless. Whispers spread like fire. The hall that once mocked him now murmured with unease. Where does he get this fortune? No human has such power. Could he be one of them? The girl's eyes never left his face. She felt a strange pull, as if his calm was feeding her strength. She remembered the first time she saw alien eyes laughing at her pain. The first time she felt like a piece of meat on display. Now for the first time someone looked at her not with hunger, not with cruelty, but with certainty. The auctioneer's voice shook slightly, though he tried to hide it. 1,000,000 credits. Do you dare, human? The man raised his hand. Gasps filled the hall. The girl's lips parted. She whispered, though the sound never reached him. Why? Why me? The auctioneer slammed his fist down. His anger was clear, but so was something else, fear. Enough, this cannot continue. Alien law forbids a human from standing equal to the noble houses. Guards, remove him. The words froze in his throat. The man did not move. He simply lifted one finger. Not his whole hand this time, just a single finger. The hall grew quiet again. The guards hesitated. The alien lords shifted in their seats, suddenly uneasy. Something unspoken rippled through the crowd. It was not the gesture itself. It was what it meant. The girl felt it too. The moment that finger rose, she felt the weight in the room change. The man's presence grew heavy, as if the air itself bent around him. An old alien lord, scarred and trembling, whispered to his neighbor, "Do you see it? That mark in his eyes? He's one of the old kind." "A commander," the neighbor scoffed, but his voice shook. "Impossible. They were wiped out in the Great War." The scarred lord shook his head. "Not all of them." The girl pressed her hands against the bars, her eyes wide. "Commander? Great War?" She did not understand, but she could feel the truth. He was not like her, not like the broken humans she had seen in cages. He was something more. The auctioneer tried to steady his voice. "You dare to mock us with silent tricks? Enough of this!" Double the guards. "Surround him!" Dozens of armored soldiers rushed forward. Blasters powered up, humming with deadly light. The crowd leaned in, eager to see him crushed, but the man did not move. His finger remained raised, steady as stone. Then it happened. A low rumble shook the walls. The crystal lamps above flickered. Alien nobles looked around nervously. Outside, through the high windows of the hall, streaks of shadow moved across the stars. The girl's breath caught. She pressed her face against the bars, trying to see. Ships. Dozens, maybe hundreds. Sleek, dark, silent shapes appearing out of nowhere, surrounding the city in the sky. The hall erupted into chaos. The human fleet. Impossible. They were destroyed. No, they've returned. The man finally lowered his finger. His voice was quiet, but every word echoed like thunder. She belongs to me. And so does this night. The girl felt her heart leap. She did not know who he was or what was coming, but she knew one thing for certain. She was no longer alone. The auctioneer stumbled back, trembling behind his mask. For the first time, the silver mask did not look powerful. It looked afraid. The guards froze, caught between duty and terror. The man stepped forward slowly, his eyes fixed on the cage. The girl gripped the bars tighter, her whisper shaking with both fear and hope. "Please, don't leave me." And for the first time in her life, she believed the answer would be no. The auction hall was no longer filled with laughter. Instead, there was fear, low whispers, shaking voices, nervous eyes. The alien nobles, once proud and mocking, now leaned back in their seats as if the man's calm presence pushed against their very bones. The girl inside the cage could not look away from him. Every move he made was steady, every word strong, yet he had not drawn a weapon. He did not need to. His silence alone was louder than the crowd. The auctioneer tried to regain control, though his masked face twitched with unease. "Do not be deceived," he cried. "He is only one man. Guards, remove him now." But the guards hesitated. Their blasters trembled in their hands. None of them wished to take the first step toward him. The man finally moved, slow and deliberate, walking down the aisle between the alien lords. Each step echoed. The crowd parted, not by choice, but by instinct. His presence demanded it. The girl pressed her face against the bars, her voice shaking as she whispered, "Who are you?" The man's eyes flicked toward her cage just for a second. His expression was unreadable, but something in his gaze told her, "Wait, you'll know soon." A noble with silver skin and burning eyes slammed his fist against the armrest. "Enough of this," he shouted. "I will not be cowed by a human ghost. I raise the bid, 2,000,000 credits. The crowd gasped. Such a number could buy a fleet of ships. All eyes turned to the man. Would he answer? Could he? The man paused, then raised his hand. Calm, simple, final. The silver-skinned noble froze. His lips trembled. He had tried to show strength, but something in that quiet gesture broke his pride. He leaned back, silent. The whispers grew louder. "He cannot be normal. Look at him. Look at his eyes. Could he be one of the lost commanders?" The girl's heart pounded. "Commander?" The word circled in her mind, heavy with meaning. She remembered the stories told in whispers between slaves. Stories of a time when humans were not weak, not broken. A time when they fought back. The man's voice finally cut through the noise. "You all think humans are weak. You think we are gone. But you forget one thing, we never die quietly." The crowd recoiled. The girl's eyes widened. The auctioneer slammed his cane against the floor, desperate to control the chaos. Lies, stories, nothing more than myths. But even as he spoke, the ground trembled again. The ships outside were moving closer, their shadows darkening the glass walls of the hall. The girl gripped the bars tighter. She could not believe what she was seeing. A fleet, human ships, real human ships, armed and waiting. For years she had thought her kind were broken, scattered, hiding like frightened animals. Yet here in front of her stood a man with an army behind him. One of the nobles shouted, fear in his voice. Impossible. The human fleets were destroyed in the Great War. The man finally turned his eyes on the shouting noble. His gaze was sharp, piercing like a blade. Destroyed? He said softly. No, we were waiting. The hall went silent again. The girl's breath shook. For the first time, she understood. This man was not here only to save her. He was here for something larger, something dangerous. The auctioneer's mask tilted toward him. If you are truly a commander, then you bring war back to the galaxy. Do you think you can win? Do you think your people are ready? The man stepped closer to the cage. His eyes locked on the girl. He spoke not to the auctioneer, but to her. One step at a time. One life at a time. Her chest tightened. His words struck something deep inside her. The crowd erupted again, half in panic, half in fury. Alien nobles shouted for guards, for ships, for the council to intervene. But the guards still hesitated, their hands shaking. Some lowered their weapons entirely, afraid to move. The girl pressed her hand against the glass bars. She whispered, her voice breaking. Why me? Out of all the slaves, all the humans they've taken, why me? For a long moment, the man said nothing. His gaze softened just slightly, and then he spoke so only she could hear. Because saving you will show them all that humans still choose. We still decide, not them. Her throat tightened, tears burning her eyes. She did not know why, but she believed him.
She believed every word. The auctioneer shouted again, furious now.
Seize him. Kill him if you must. The guards finally stepped forward, fear in their eyes, but bound by command. They raised their weapons, the hum of energy filling the air. The man turned toward them slowly, his hand lowering to his side. The girl thought he might finally fight. But he didn't need to. Outside, the sky lit up. The cloaked ships revealed themselves fully now, dozens of them, their weapons glowing. The sound of alarms filled the city. The man's voice was calm, steady. Try, and see what happens. The guards froze. Not one fired. The girl's heart raced. This was no ordinary man. This was no slave, no survivor. He was a storm, waiting to break. And for the first time in her life, she felt not fear, but something new. She felt hope. The auction hall shook with alarms. Red lights flashed across the walls, throwing long shadows over the terrified crowd. Outside the giant glass windows, the human ships circled like wolves around a wounded beast. Their weapons glowed, ready, silent but threatening. The girl gripped the bars of her cage so hard her fingers hurt. Her heart raced. She could barely breathe. Everything felt unreal. A moment ago, she was nothing but a slave on display. Now she was at the center of something much larger, something that could shatter empires. The auctioneer tried to shout above the chaos. His silver mask gleamed under the flashing lights. "Do not be afraid," he yelled, though his voice cracked. "The council fleets will come. No human tricks can stand against our power." But even as he spoke, fear spread through the nobles. Some fled their seats, rushing toward the exits. Others froze, trapped between pride and terror. The man, the human bidder, stood calm at the center of it all. His dark clothes were plain, his face quiet, his posture steady. He had not drawn a weapon. He had not shouted. He had not begged. And yet, he commanded the room. The girl whispered through the bars, her voice trembling. "What are you going to do?" The man turned his eyes toward her. There was no fear in them, only certainty. "Whatever I must." The auctioneer slammed his staff against the floor. "You are only one man. Do you think this show of ships will save you? Do you think it will save her?" He pointed at the cage. "She is property. She is nothing." The girl's breath caught. Her heart sank with those words. She had heard them before, again and again. Property, nothing. But the man stepped forward. He raised his hand, slow, deliberate. And then, with the calmness of someone who did not fear death, he lifted a single finger. The hall froze. It was such a small gesture, so simple. Yet it was enough. The guards who had been aiming their weapons lowered them slightly, almost without thinking. The nobles mid-shout fell silent. Even the auctioneer stiffened, his silver mask tilting as though he suddenly felt smaller. The girl felt it too. Something about that finger sent a shiver through her. It wasn't just a signal. It was a memory, a symbol. Whispers filled the hall like ghostly wind. That signal. It can't be. The commanders. The human commanders. The old scarred noble, the one who had whispered before, spoke louder this time. His voice shook with both fear and recognition. "I saw it long ago, during the Great War. When the humans came to our world, their leaders raised a single finger, and whole fleets obeyed." Gasps rippled through the room. The girl's eyes widened. She looked again at the man, at his steady face, his silent hand. Could it be true? Was he really one of them? The auctioneer tried to laugh, though his voice was thin. "Myths, old war stories to frighten children. Do not believe." But his words were drowned out by the sound outside. One by one, the human ships powered up their cannons. The glow was blinding, blue light flooding the windows. The entire city shook under the pressure of their energy. The girl pressed her hands against the bars. Her heart pounded, her breath caught. She whispered almost to herself, "He's not bluffing." The man lowered his hand. The lights outside dimmed slightly, but the threat remained. He stepped closer to the cage. His voice was calm, but each word was sharp as steel. "You will release her. Now." The auctioneer trembled behind his mask. If I refuse?" The man's eyes narrowed. For the first time, his voice carried anger. Not loud, not wild, controlled, deadly. "Then this city burns." The silence that followed was heavy. The nobles shifted uncomfortably. Some muttered protests, but none dared speak too loud. The guards, still frozen, looked to the auctioneer, waiting. The girl's chest rose and fell quickly. She could not believe what she was hearing. No one had ever spoken for her like this. No one had ever threatened entire worlds for her freedom. The auctioneer finally shouted, desperate to hold on to power. She is only one girl. Why risk all this for her? The man looked directly at the girl then, his eyes steady, his voice softer but stronger than any shout. Because one human life is not nothing. Not anymore. The words hit her like a wave. Her throat tightened, her eyes burned. She wanted to believe. She needed to believe. But before she could speak, the auctioneer gave a command. Enough, guards, kill him now. The guards raised their weapons again. The girl screamed, pressing against the cage. No, the man did not flinch. He simply raised his finger once more, and this time the ships outside responded instantly. A beam of light shot from the nearest cruiser, striking a tower on the edge of the city. The explosion shook the ground. Glass shattered across the hall. Screams filled the air. The guards froze again. None dared fire. The nobles shrieked, some falling to their knees. The auctioneer stumbled back, his mask cracked from falling debris. For the first time, his voice was small, weak. Who are you? The man stepped closer to the cage. His eyes never left the girl. I am the reminder that humans are not gone. We are not slaves. We are not broken. The girl's hands trembled against the bars. Her voice was barely a whisper. Then what happens now? The man's lips curved into the faintest shadow of a smile. Now, he said, we take back what was stolen. The alarms wailed louder. The city shook again. The turning point had come, and nothing in the galaxy would be the same after this night. The explosion's echo rolled through the auction hall like thunder. Dust rained from the ceiling and broken glass crunched under trembling alien feet. Outside, the human fleet hovered in silence, weapons glowing, ready to strike again if commanded. The girl's heart pounded so hard she thought it might break through her chest. Her fingers still clutched the bars of the cage, but her eyes were fixed on the man, calm, steady, unshaken. He had not lifted a weapon, yet entire towers had fallen at the lift of his finger. The auctioneer staggered back, his silver mask cracked, his voice weak. You are not just a man. Who are you? The man did not answer right away. He looked around the hall at the nobles who once mocked him and now cowered in silence. Then his gaze fell on the girl. His voice was quiet, but it carried to every corner of the chamber. You know me, even if you do not remember. Confusion rippled through the crowd. One of the older nobles stood, his scaled hands shaking. His voice broke as he whispered, I do remember. The war, the fire, the humans. They were not slaves then. They were leaders, commanders, monsters, some called them. The hall stirred. More whispers rose, fearful and urgent. No, they were destroyed. The commanders were legends. Impossible. He cannot be one of them. The girl's breath caught. She turned her wide eyes back to him. Commander? The man finally spoke again, his words steady, sharp like blades. We were not destroyed. We were hidden. We waited because the galaxy forgot what humans could do. They thought we were broken. They thought we were gone. That was their mistake. His eyes burned with quiet fire as he added, and now they will remember. The crowd gasped. Some nobles stumbled from their seats. The auctioneer shook his head violently. No lies! If you were truly a commander, you would not waste your time on one girl. He pointed at the cage with shaking hands. Why her? Why risk your fleet for something so worthless? The girl flinched at the word, worthless. She had heard it too many times, each one a chain around her heart. But before the pain could grow, the man's voice cut through, sharp and strong. She is not worthless. No human is worthless. That lie dies tonight. The word struck her like lightning. Her throat tightened, tears threatened, but her chest lifted for the first time. She felt seen. The man took a step closer to the cage. His eyes locked on hers. They will call this war. They will call me dangerous. But it begins with you. With one human life saved in the open, not in the shadows. One life to remind them that humanity chooses its own fate. Her breath caught. She whispered, trembling, Why me? Out of all the others they've taken. Why me? His face softened for just a moment. Because you looked at the stars and still had hope. I saw it in your eyes. That is enough. The hall filled with shouts. Nobles argued, some demanding his death, others begging for peace. The guard stood frozen, unable to decide whose orders mattered anymore, the auctioneers or the commanders. The auctioneer raised his staff again, desperate. You cannot fight the entire council. Even with your fleet you will fall. They will crush you. The man turned slowly, his gaze sweeping over the hall. His voice was calm, but every word carried weight. They tried before. They failed, and they will fail again. Because humans do not fight alone, we fight together. At those words, the fleet outside shifted. More ships uncloaked, appearing in the skies above the city. Hundreds now, maybe thousands, filling the heavens like a storm. The light of their weapons lit the hall through the glass, bathing everything in an eerie glow. The girl pressed her hand against the bars, her body trembling with awe. She whispered almost to herself, "They came back." The commander, because she could no longer think of him as anything less, looked back at her, and for a moment, his calm face showed something else. A shadow of sorrow. "They should never have left," he said softly. "But we were forced to hide. Forced to wait. Too many were lost. Too many cages like yours filled while we stayed silent." His eyes hardened again. "That ends now." The auctioneer fell to his knees, the mask slipping from his face. His skin was pale, his voice broken. "Please do not destroy us. The council will pay you. Anything you want. Just spare this world." The commander's gaze was cold. "Spare you? You traded lives as if they were coins. You broke humans piece by piece. Tell me, auctioneer, if our roles were reversed, would you spare me?" The auctioneer had no answer. He trembled, silent. The commander stepped to the cage. With a single motion, he gripped the bars. Metal groaned, bent, then snapped under his strength. He pulled the door open and extended his hand toward the girl. Her breath caught. She stared at him, then at his hand, uncertain if this was real. "Come," he said simply. "You are free." Tears filled her eyes. Her hands shook as she reached for his. Warmth met her cold skin, steady and firm. For the first time in her life, she stepped out of a cage, not to chains, but to freedom. The hall erupted again, some in fear, some in fury. But the sound no longer mattered. She was no longer behind bars. And as she stood beside him, her heart racing, she realized something greater. This was not just about her freedom. It was the beginning of something far larger, the beginning of war. The hall was no longer a place of laughter and pride. It had become a tomb of silence, broken only by the low hum of alarms and the deep, steady sound of human ships outside. Their shadows covered the windows like a dark tide, blotting out the stars. The girl's breath came fast, her hands trembling against the bars of her cage. She could feel it now. Something was different about the man who had bid for her. He was not just a stranger. He carried a weight that shook everyone around him. The auctioneer's silver mask gleamed, but his voice was unsteady. You cannot be what they whisper." "A commander?" "No, the commanders died long ago. The council wiped them out. Humans are broken." The man finally looked at him. His calm gaze was like stone. His words, though quiet, cut through the noise. "You wanted us broken. You told yourselves we were finished. But humans do not vanish, we endure. And when the time is right, we return." The hall stirred with fear. The nobles shifted in their seats, their eyes darting between him and the fleet outside. None dared to laugh now. None dared to mock. The girl's heart pounded. Return? She tried to imagine it. Humans, not as slaves or runaways, but as something greater. Could it be true? An older alien noble rose slowly, his voice shaking. "I fought in the Great War. I saw humans then. They led armies, ships, whole worlds. And I remember, when one of their commanders raised a finger, entire fleets obeyed. We lost thousands in moments. That gesture," his eyes widened, locking on the man. "I never thought I would see it again." A wave of whispers ran through the hall. Fear, disbelief, denial. The auctioneer tried to shout over them, desperate. Lies, old men and their stories. "He is a fraud." He pointed at the girl's cage. "Why risk so much for her? She is nothing, just another slave." The word stabbed her like a knife. Nothing. She had lived her whole life hearing that word, believing it. She lowered her eyes, ashamed, though she didn't know why. But then the man's voice broke through, strong and sharp. "No human is nothing." Not one, her head lifted. Her breath caught. His eyes were on her now, steady, fierce, unshakable. "She matters," he said. "Because if even one life can be saved in the open, it proves we are not broken. It proves we choose our own fate." The girl felt something stir inside her chest, something she had not felt in years. Hope. Small, fragile, but real. The auctioneer shook with fury. "You think your words can frighten us? The council will crush you. Your fleet, your myths, your one slave, they will burn." The man stepped forward, slow and deliberate. His voice stayed calm. "They tried before. They failed. And they will fail again." The nobles gasped as the human fleet outside shifted formation. More ships uncloaked, filling the sky like a storm of steel. Their weapons glowed, lighting the city in blue fire. The girl's eyes widened. She pressed against the bars, whispering, "So many." The auctioneer fell back, his staff slipping from his hands. His mask cracked down the middle, revealing pale, sweating skin. "Please do not destroy us. Spare the council's world. You want the girl? Take her. Just leave us alive." The man stared at him with cold eyes. "You never spared us. You never left humans alive. You turned us into coins to trade, and now you ask for mercy?" The auctioneer stammered, unable to speak. The man stepped closer to the cage. His hands gripped the bars. With one powerful motion he pulled. The metal groaned, bent, and snapped. The lock shattered like glass. The girl gasped. She had imagined freedom, dreamed of it, but she had never thought it would come like this. Sudden, violent, unstoppable. The door swung open. The man extended his hand. "Come," her body shook. For a moment she hesitated, fear and disbelief holding her back. But then she looked into his eyes. There was no doubt there, no hesitation, only certainty. She reached out, her fingers trembling, and touched his hand. It was warm, strong, real. He pulled her gently from the cage. For the first time in her life, she stood outside the bars without chains. The hall erupted with noise. Nobles shouted, some furious, some begging for mercy. Guards raised their weapons, but their hands shook too much to fire. The fleet outside loomed larger, waiting for the man's command. The girl clung to his arm, her voice shaking. "What happens now?" He looked down at her, his face calm but his words heavy. "Now the galaxy remembers, and it begins with you." Her breath caught. She realized then that she was no longer just one slave, no longer just one forgotten girl. She was the spark, and the fire was only beginning. The auction hall was no longer a place of order. It had become a storm. The girl stood beside the man, no longer behind bars, no longer a prize for aliens to buy. Her legs trembled, her heart pounded, but she clung to his arm as if it was the only solid thing in a world breaking apart. The nobles shouted, their voices wild with panic. Some screamed at guards to attack, others begged for mercy. The auctioneer, his silver mask broken, crawled backward across the floor, his words tumbling out in fear. "Don't kill me." "Spare me, I gave her up." "She's yours." But no one was listening. The guards raised their weapons, their faces pale. Some aimed at the man, others at the girl, but their hands shook. They had seen the fleet outside. They had seen one gesture from him bring a tower to ruin. None wanted to be the first to fire, the girl whispered, her voice shaking. We won't make it out." The man looked down at her, his calm eyes meeting hers. "We will." He stepped forward, slow but steady, pulling her with him. The guards shifted, but none dared move closer. Then the first explosion came. The windows shattered as a blast shook the city. The floor trembled beneath their feet. A tower outside crumbled, falling in fire. Screams filled the hall. Nobles scattered, rushing for the exits, trampling each other in their desperation to escape. The girl clung tighter. Her heart raced. She had never seen such chaos, such raw power, and yet the man walked calmly, as if he had planned every step of this. A group of guards finally found their courage. They shouted, charging forward, weapons glowing. The man let go of her hand just long enough to move. He was fast, too fast for her eyes to follow. One guard swung a blade, but the man stepped inside his strike and dropped him with a single blow. Another fired a shot, but the man twisted aside, the blast cutting into the wall. His hand gripped the guard's arm and snapped it like a twig. The girl's eyes widened. She had seen humans beaten, starved, and broken, but she had never seen one move like this. He wasn't just surviving, he was dominating. The last guard hesitated, fear in his eyes. The man raised his fist, but then stopped. He didn't need to strike. The guard dropped his weapon and ran. The girl's breath shook. How are you doing this?" The man picked up a fallen weapon, checked it, then tossed it aside as useless. He turned back to her. "Because humans were never as weak as they wanted you to believe." He took her hand again. "Stay close." They moved toward the exit. The hall shook with every step, explosions rocking the city. The human fleet outside fired in controlled bursts, striking towers, silencing defenses, creating paths through chaos. It was clear now this was not just a rescue. This was an invasion. The girl stumbled as the floor cracked beneath them. He pulled her up easily, steadying her without slowing down. Nobles rushed past them, screaming, desperate to escape the wrath of the fleet. None dared challenge him now. The auctioneer, still crawling on the floor, reached out toward the man. His face was pale, his mask half broken. "Please," he begged. "Don't kill me." "I was only doing my duty. It was business. Just business." The man stopped, staring down at him with cold eyes. For a moment, the girl thought he might strike him down, but then he turned away. "You'll live to remember." The auctioneer froze, trembling. Somehow the mercy cut deeper than death. They reached the grand doors of the hall. Beyond them, chaos spread through the city. Fires burning, alarms screaming, alien ships scrambling in panic. The girl's breath caught. "Where do we go?" "They'll catch us." The man lifted his hand again, his finger rising into the air, and the sky answered. A sleek human dropship broke through the smoke, engines roaring as it descended toward the hall. Its weapons fired in precise bursts, cutting down alien defenses but leaving the path clear. The doors shattered open under the force of the blast, and the ship hovered just beyond, its ramp lowering. The girl's eyes widened. She had dreamed of freedom, but she had never dreamed of this. The man pulled her forward. "We go home." They ran across the shattered floor, the heat of fire pressing against them. The girl stumbled again, but he lifted her with ease, carrying her the last steps onto the ramp. Inside the dropship, human soldiers stood waiting. They were strong, armored, their faces hard, but when they saw her, their expressions softened. One of them bowed his head slightly. "Another one saved," he said. The man guided her inside. The ramp lifted, the ship rising into the sky. The city below burned with fire and smoke. Alien ships scrambled, but the fleet above crushed them with cold precision. The girl pressed against the window, staring down. Her whole life had been cages and cruelty. Now she watched her captors flee in terror. Her whisper was almost too soft to hear. "It's real. I'm free." The man stood beside her, his arms crossed, his eyes on the burning city. "No," he said quietly. "This is only the beginning. Freedom is never given. It is taken." The girl looked at him, her heart racing. She realized then that she was no longer just a slave rescued by chance. She was part of something far bigger, something that would shake the galaxy. And as the fleet gathered in the skies, preparing for war, she whispered one more word to herself, filled with both fear and hope: home. The dropship cut through the smoke-filled skies, its engines roaring like thunder. Beneath it, the city burned. Towers that once glittered with alien wealth now crumbled in fire, their light swallowed by the shadows of the human fleet above. The girl pressed her hands against the window, her eyes wide. She could not look away. The galaxy she had known, where humans were slaves, weak and broken, was falling apart before her eyes. She whispered almost to herself, This is real." The man stood beside her, silent, his gaze steady as he watched the chaos below. He had not smiled once. He had not cheered. His face carried the weight of something larger, something colder. The soldiers inside the dropship moved with quiet discipline. They did not celebrate either. They checked weapons, adjusted armor, exchanged short signals. To them, this was not victory. This was work. The girl turned to the man, her voice trembling. "Why are they not happy? You saved me. You destroyed the auction. Shouldn't this feel like freedom?" The man's eyes met hers. For the first time, there was a shadow of sorrow in them. Freedom is not won in a single night. This is only the first strike. The war has just begun. Her breath caught. War. The word felt heavy, sharp, dangerous. She wanted to ask more, but the dropship shook as it rose higher, pulling away from the burning city. Through the window, the full scale of the human fleet came into view. Dozens of warships stretched across the sky, sleek and dark, their weapons glowing. They moved as one, perfect and silent, like predators circling prey. The girl's heart raced. She had never imagined so many humans could still exist, much less build such power. All her life she had believed the whispers, that her people were scattered, weak, forgotten. But here, above this world, was proof. Humans had not died. They had waited. The commander's voice broke her thoughts. The council will send fleets. They will send armies. They will hunt us harder now. She swallowed, her voice barely a whisper. Then why start this? He looked at her for a long moment. His face was calm, but his words were sharp. Because hiding is another kind of cage. We chose tonight to step out. The girl lowered her eyes. She thought of the cage, the bars pressing against her skin, the way she had whispered, "Please don't leave me." Now here she was, flying beside him, her chains broken. The dropship entered the docking bay of a massive flagship. The bay was filled with human soldiers, engineers, medics. They all paused as the ramp lowered. Their eyes fell on the girl. For a moment, she felt exposed. But instead of mockery or pity, she saw respect. Heads dipped, hands pressed against hearts. To them, she was not a slave. She was proof. A soldier stepped forward, saluting the commander. "Target secured, sir." "Enemy resistance collapsing. Orders?" The commander's voice was calm but final. "Withdraw from the city. Leave it burning. Let them remember this night." The soldier nodded, shouting commands. Engines roared as ships shifted into formation. The girl turned to him, fear rising in her chest. "They'll come after us, won't they? All of them." "Yes," he said simply. Her voice shook. "Then what will happen to me?" He looked at her, his gaze softer than before. "You will live. That is enough. You will live free." Her throat tightened. She wanted to believe it, but fear still pressed against her heart. She whispered, "I don't know how to be free." For the first time, his lips curved into the faintest smile. "Then you'll learn. With us." The flagship shook as its engines powered up. The fleet began to move, pulling away from the alien world. The burning city grew smaller, swallowed by smoke. The girl leaned against the window, her reflection staring back at her. She was no longer the girl in the cage. She was something else now, something unknown. Her whisper was soft but steady. "Home, I'll find it." The commander stood behind her, his eyes on the stars. This was never just an auction. This was a message. The girl turned, confused. "A message?" He nodded. "To every world that forgot us. To every empire that chained us. To every council that thought humans were gone. The message is simple." He raised his hand, a single finger pointing upward. "We are back." The fleet jumped to light speed, streaks of starlight swallowing the view. The girl closed her eyes, her chest tight with fear and hope. She did not know what tomorrow would bring. But she knew one thing for certain. Nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again. And far behind them, in the ruins of the auction city, alien survivors whispered the same words over and over in trembling voices. "The humans have returned.